Wait for that to connect. Okay, we are connected to YouTube stream. Things are going good. It's 7:30 on Friday the 8th of December, guys. Welcome to episode 233 of Thompsin and Other Disappointments. Your twice, sometimes thrice weekly delve into the worlds of politics, news, dystopia, and all things shit. Allow me to uplift your mood as we make it towards the end of another week, as we try to make sense of the senseless, as I try to bring my light to your darkness. Guys, I've got two sponsors for this episode. Quickly give them a shout out and a doff of the cap for continuing to support the show. First up, this episode of Thompsin and Other Disappointments is brought to you by the Matthew Sabien album ECLIPSE, available now on SoundCloud. Please do go and check it out. If you search Matthew Sabien and then ECLIPSE, I'm sure that you'll find it. Go and check that out. Also, this podcast is brought to you in association with Global Butterflies. If you go to globalbutterflies.com, you'll find they are a business consultancy and they will help your business support you in making your business more trans and non-binary inclusive. And then you can reap the benefits that there are to be had from doing that. Go to globalbutterflies.com. Guys, tonight I'm honoured. I've got a guest I'm super psyched to have on the show. She's an activist, she's an author, she's a journalist and editor. She needs no introduction. Please welcome to the show my guest this evening, Anthea Simmons. Woo! Anthea.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ray. Great to be here.
Welcome. How's your week been? Let's start with that.
How's anybody's week been in the midst of the COVID inquiry? Titchy Rishi having a little meltdown and
it's been
immigration officers flying out the door.
I was thinking earlier, like I know there's a lot of chaos. I know there's a lot of mayhem, or Kayhem as I've rebranded it recently, but it's felt like it's been a while since there's been as big a news week as this week, as you rightly point out. Like immigration ministers just, throwing their toys out the pram, storming out, and he's at number 2, so he's reporting directly into the Home Secretary. The COVID inquiry, Boris Johnson. Any other week that would be the main story, right? But for some reason, this obsession with Rwanda, with Suella Braverman, that's bubbling up. That's sort of become the new Partygate almost, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy. And also, it's kind of weird, isn't it? How many people's WhatsApp messages disappeared, or their phones got lost, or everything got eaten by a dog or something in the same period of time. Those messages must be so bad that it was worth having everybody say, oh, like you really lost them.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's the age-old question. It's like if you're willing to make yourself look this haphazard, disorganized and fumbly, then what's worse than that? But potentially rendering yourself unemployable to whoever you next go on to.
Yeah.
I remember.
Well, it's clearly I'd rather be a twat than be in prison.
Yes. Yeah. Free twat or imprisoned genius. It's a similar sort of feeling I got when the Sturgeons got raided and they dug up her lawn. And I remember doing a video saying, like, what is so bad that they would rather that we think that they are like Fred and Rose West, basically.
Yeah. I know.
I know. But yeah, and then just to touch on the WhatsApp stuff. I did a little thing about this earlier in the week where I was like, the whole point of an inquiry is to almost, first it's to get to the truth, right? But secondly, it's to restore confidence in the public. That they understand that there is some semblance of accountability. But when you've got the former Prime Minister, the former Chancellor, who is now Prime Minister, plus the guy who was in charge of Test, Track and Trace, plus there's another one, isn't there? I'm forgetting one. There's 4 of them.
Well, Lord Bethel, I think. Was it Lord Bethel who lost his phone? Or
yeah,
there are various people who've lost.
Yes, there's definitely 4 of them, because I remember counting them earlier in the week. But yeah, so Lord Bethel, but he was Minister for Test and Trace.
That was something else. Yes, that's right. Yes.
And then there's the guy that was signed off sick indefinitely, so he can't appear to it.
Simon Case.
That's him.
Simon Sick Case.
Like in any other inquiry or trial or media journo situation, like alarm bells should be written. It's like, how are we just blindly accepting that these 4 key characters have all lost their phones or are withholding evidence or just, I mean, I feel like if he doesn't make an appearance, Simon Case, you know, if he can't even dial in on a Zoom call or submit his phone, like if he's too sick to come in, but he can't submit his phone, like somebody owes me a dead civil servant, basically. Like, because
Well, I was going to say, we need to see him alive, don't we?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy times, man. Anyway, let's touch on your background, Anthea, because as I say, I'm really excited to get you on. You sort of, it feels like you've like you're either a jack of all trades, like you're good at a load of stuff, or you've pivoted in the same or similar way to how I have, kind of career wise. So can you sort of take us back to the beginning, and then just let's talk about how you became radicalized and became an activist also.
Okay. So I'm just a regular vicar's daughter, grew up in Cornwall, North Devon. Went to Oxford, went to work in the city, was one of the first girls on the floor of the stock exchange. Had a great time, was spoilt rotten, voted Tory.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Thought that was my tribe, fitted in. I retired, quit in 2001.
Right.
And did nothing for a bit, except looked after my son, who was 5 at the time that I retired. And then did a bit of teaching. And then gradually, I don't know what happened. They say you get more, some people say you get more right wing as you get older. Well, that definitely is not what's happened to me. I was just suddenly woke up and thought, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Something very, very wrong here. And I suppose Brexit was the catalyst to kick me into, finally wake me up and say, for goodness sake, got to bloody do something. Can't just sit on the sidelines. So got heavily involved in the Brexit campaign. I'm sort of number 2 at Devon for Europe, which was at its peak, had 24,000 people on the mailing list. And, we ran 16 coaches up to the People's Vote March, just from Devon alone, so really, really big effort there. And just absolutely sickened at being sold out by the politicians.
Yeah, I think that's the. I heard somebody describe, and I promise this is relevant. I heard somebody describe the Philip Schofield and what was the lady he presented with? Forget her name now.
Holly Willoughby.
Yeah, Holly Willoughby. That's it. When they appeared to jump the queue to see the Queen lying in state, somebody said something along the lines of, if there's one thing that gets Brits wound up, it's the feeling that somebody else is sort of like taking the mick, like taking their place, pushing in front of them, or there's some sort of unjust thing as to, like, and they're being messed around by it. And it's not an exact parallel, it's not a perfect metaphor, but it's I think there's a strong element of that with Brexit, where until then it wasn't a thing that had necessarily, like, politics wasn't really a thing that had reached out and touched people or engaged them in a way as potentially losing their freedom of movement might do, as the rupture to the economy that was predicted might have done. And it's interesting to hear you say that was one of the key things that got you into it, because when I interviewed Marina Purkis and Gemma Forte, actually, it was exactly the same thing. It was like that was when it
being
all
screwed over by liars is not a good feeling.
Well, when it's so obvious as well.
Yeah.
It's like,
and the press collusion and the whole thing. I mean, the whole thing absolutely stinks. And I think we do have a very strong sense of justice. And I think one of the things that's driven me is real fury at them getting away with it, and getting away with so much over and over and over again. I want to see people in jail.
Same, yeah. This is my thing I keep coming back to over the last couple of weeks. I'm like, people wonder how, and I keep using the R word here, like radicalization, but people wonder how someone like me, who's come from the background that I do, which is sort of like council estates and then university and then into IT. I've got a reasonably comfortable salary coming in. People wonder, like, how somebody with the responsibilities that I do in the background that I have could end up radicalized and like frothing at the mouth, screaming like these people belong in prison. But it's true. It's like when there's no accountability, and the crimes are so obvious, and it appears like people are just getting away with it and smirking as they do, it elicits, it just ignites a fire within you where you're just like, no, I'm sorry, like, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm not having my kids or my friends' kids or, you know, whatever, pay the price for these idiots and them just like swan off to, you know, wherever it is that they're planning on spending their book and speaker circuit money, you know?
Yeah, House of Lords and the Cayman Islands, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also then overlay that with the climate emergency and the decades of disinformation and suppressed research from the fossil fuel companies, and you just feel, you know, this planet does not exist for billionaires. That's not, you know, it's not their plaything. It's not for them to trash
Did you
nature,
see
the environment, people's livelihoods.
Did you see
Yeah,
the
it's just something. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, did you see the clip of Question Time last night where the lady in the audience?
George was great, wasn't he?
Wait, hang on. Are we talking about the same guest? Like
George Monbiot. And Peter Hitchens.
So yes, right. So George I'm positive I'm not pronouncing his name properly.
George Monbiot.
Monbiot. Okay.
Yes, he lives near us. Yeah, he lives down
Wicked.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm quite impressed with myself that I nailed it first time. Okay. So so yes, great. He was a great panelist. And that was a very interesting exchange, which you can come on to. But I was really interested in the lady in the colourful top who said to Johnny Mercer, you know, why do you keep saying that we have to drill in the North Sea to provide or to afford us some energy security? None of that oil or gas is going to come to us. It's going to go on the global markets. So why do you keep saying that? And he fumbled, he stumbled, he couldn't answer the question. I was like, oh, finally, like, I've been tweeting about this for ages. People are like, that's our oil. Like, it's going to save us. That's going to keep us sustainable. I'm like, it will be sold on the global markets like all of the other oil and gases, you know?
And we've already got enough to see us to 2050 anyway. It's not a problem. I mean, really, we should be getting really excited about the possibility of a whole new industrial revolution, only it's a green revolution.
Yeah.
And we should be at the forefront of it, not waiting for everybody else to develop the technology. And then we'll have to creep along and try and buy it. You know, I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah.
But that's what fossil fuel capture is all about, isn't it?
Well, this is it. It's when you look at the vested interests of the donors that feed into the Conservative Party, and I really, really hope it changes if and when there is a Labour government, but I have this horrible feeling, Anthea, that it's just going to be like business as usual, like they will be just as subservient to the donor whip kind of structure and mechanisms as the Tories are. Like, they're still going to need money to fund their party, and they'll still go cap in hand to a lot of these big oil and gas companies, and then nothing will change. But I really hope it does. But it does feel like, you know, where you've got fracking corporations over here lobbying people like Steve Baker, and then you've got BP donating all of this money over to CCHQ over here. And you're right.
Like, all the property developers saying, we can't build a house, we can't build houses that are properly insulated and have alternative sources of heat and everything. We just, you know, there's no money in it. Delay the time when we have to do that.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right to draw the parallel a second ago between this and where Brexit was, because you've got this sort of money, this influence of big corporations and incredibly wealthy individuals, some of whom you may have used to have represented in your former life in asset management. However, it's just this feeling of unfairness and misrepresentation and treating the public as though we're idiots, you know? Like, if we use that example that you've just tapped into there of the deregulation or the watering down of regulations for new homes. So previously this was a staple, we know, of our commitment to reaching net zero, was that all new homes would be built with certain materials that would be then better insulated. But because property developers, I know you will know this, but just for the benefit of listeners, because property developers are the largest of all the donors to the Conservative Party, then lo and behold, surprise, surprise, Sunak stands up there behind a podium and says, well, you know, like, I don't know if there's so much of a rush. We're going to let the new builders off the hook. They don't know, you don't have to use new flashy heat pumps. It's fine. Like, it's like, all right, okay. So how incredibly lucky.
The real con is telling people that they're the ones, you know, it's you, the man in the street, you're the one that's going to have to pay for all of this.
Yeah.
Now that is just plain wicked. That really is. You know, you're going to implying to people that they're going to have their cars taken away from them.
Yeah.
And that they'll suddenly have to find 15 grand for a ground source heat pump.
Yeah.
It's absolute, you know, that's just
And the
criminal,
problem with that
criminal
is
again.
the problem with that is and I don't suppose it's a particularly helpful thing for me to say. I'm going to pre-stress that this is my opinion, not yours, Anthea.
Okay.
But the problem with that is that most people out there are really fucking stupid. So when a Tory with a blue tie on and a plummy accent is on Question Time, if it's a more receptive audience, or if the host is in a more pro-Tory mood that week, and the Tory says, well, you know, we've saved you £15,000 you were going to have to pay, a lot of people out there will be like, that was close. Yeah, I'll vote Tory again, you know?
Yeah. But do you know, I think the scales are falling from people's eyes.
Yeah.
This lot have been so bad that I think people are really saying now, never again. I'm never going to vote for those people again. They're crooks, criminals, corrupt.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a question. If we just talk about Southern primary, actually, which gives us a bit of real hope for what's coming down the line. And part of it is about mobilizing the disaffected and giving the disillusioned something, you know, you can do this, and you might actually, come news night, there might be a shocked presenter saying, you won't believe this, but in this safe seat that's been Tory for 100 years, the community got together and booted the Tory out.
Yeah.
Because that is what this is all about. It's about community power.
Let's expand on that, because this is obviously an area of passion and great interest for me. I think it's going to play a pivotal role in the upcoming general election. Now, you have a bit of experience in it, so maybe you could tell us about how you got started in that initiative, and then we'll sort of move on to how that's going to scale up at the coming GE, okay?
So we'll go back to the start of things.
Yeah.
A guy called Simon Aldridge, who's a really strong environmental campaigner and has worked on the CE bill with Caroline Lucas. That's the Climate and Ecology Bill, which it's essential we get through, because that will absolutely change everything. He came to talk to me because I run West Country Voices, which is an online citizen journalism paper, and we don't hold back, and we are anti-Tory, and we call them out all the time. And said, look, I've got this idea. What do you think? And I thought, yeah, why not? Let's do it. And then we were joined by Ben Long, who's also a climate activist.
Mm-hmm.
And the three of us sort of got together and thrashed out how it might look and how it might work. And then just about a year ago, we took our first democracy meter out on the streets, which is the sort of, it's a bit of fun, really, but it's a way of engaging with people. So we've got these 6 questions. They're not biased at all. Do you trust the Conservatives to clean up the mess they've made? That's the first one.
Right, okay.
Slightly
loaded.
Yeah. So outspoken on that and so sort of obviously biased is, 1, so that nobody could say, oh, you're trying to trick me into saying anything. 2 was that I think after the succession of prime ministers, a lot of people seem to keep thinking we've got a new government. Because it's the same party. Yes, you've got a new prime minister. You've got a new prime minister every 10 minutes. That's got nothing to do with it. Just reminding people that what they're suffering now is down to these people before they try and offload it onto somebody else and keep saying, oh, it's all Labour's fault.
Yeah.
The next question is the NHS safe with the Conservatives? The next one, do you trust the Conservatives to act effectively on the climate and nature crisis? Then it's, are you concerned about the state of our democracy? Do you trust your Conservative MP to act in your best interests? And finally, do you like the idea of uniting behind a single opposition candidate? And that's when the storytelling comes in.
Right.
So what we find on the street is that people, love to be asked, which is something that's quite surprising. They find it very therapeutic. The anger comes out, the rants come out, the frustrations come out. They stick their stickers on with vehemence and passion. No, I don't. And when you ask about, are you concerned about democracy? What comes out over and over again? Yeah, because it doesn't matter how I vote, I don't get what I want.
Right.
So people understand that they are being disenfranchised and that the scourge of the safe seat, the scourge of first past the post, the scourge of complacency, really, and apathy in some cases, is what's preventing change. And people want to go want to be re-engaged, and they want a reason to re-engage, and that's what the primary offers them.
And it's like all of these are really important points to hammer home, because there's so many different ways that people are pushed out of the electoral process now. So you've got the very obvious ones, and then you've got the more subtle ones. So the obvious ones are where they've changed the law to require people to use voter identification, and the acceptable forms of ID are sort of weighted towards. So if you're an old age pensioner, you can use this, but if you are a young person, not so much. So there's that sort of stuff. But there's also, I feel like if you ask people on the street and you say, you know, do you trust the local Tory MP to reflect your concerns and interests over the concerns of the party, I think that's a really important and enlightening question to ask and then to educate people on, because the donor whip structure of the Conservative Party, primarily, as I say, it could be true with Labour also, is not set up to reflect the constituent's interest, is it, at all? So if you go to Joe Bloggs on the street and you say, well, what are your interests, blah, 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 that like he might or she might go to the local MP and then voice that concern. And maybe if it's a very independently minded Conservative MP, they might go back up to CCHQ and voice it. But the chances are, if that conflicts with a donor, with what the donor wants to see in terms of regulation, in terms of new laws, legislation, you don't stand a fucking chance. Like, your concerns are absolutely secondary to the business side, which is why I always keep saying, like, the Conservative Party are not there to govern for the people. They're there to sell policy to billionaires who pay them and fund them. And then if what you want as a constituent is something that doesn't conflict with that, then maybe. You know?
But, you know, it's interesting when you ask people, a lot of people say, well, Anthony Magnall's a personable guy and I quite like him. But they say, but I'm not a billionaire and I'm not a millionaire. So therefore, this is a party that does not act in my best interest because I'm not rich.
Yeah.
And only if I'm rich and can do something for them are they interested in me. So people get that.
So let's talk.
And then,
no, I was just going to say, so let's talk about, because I suppose traditionally, historically, people would say, oh, well, if I don't feel that my local safe seat Tory MP is going to reflect my views, I will vote for the other party. But in your constituency, that traditionally has been a problem, right? Should we talk a little bit about, could you tell us about vote splitting in that area?
Well, it's been a Tory seat for 100 years. And we're talking stereotypes here, but there is an affluent retired class who have traditionally voted Tory. I think the Tories had a sort of good scam going when they managed to persuade people that voting Tory was somehow aspirational.
Right.
And it was a kind of badge of having left the working class or left the wokerati or whatever, you know, just being sort of, I'm looking after number one in my family kind of thing.
Right.
So they managed to capture that feeling, I think. And what's happened in Totnes in particular is that you had, after Sarah Wollaston was a good constituency MP.
Yeah.
And she was chosen by a primary, actually.
Oh, right.
It was open to everybody in the whole constituency to choose the Conservative they wanted to represent them.
Yeah.
So, you know, quite enlightened. So that's where part of the idea came from. But last time round, for example, the biggest cohort of people after those who voted Tory, and it was only, I think, I've got to be sure of the numbers, but it was only 44% of the electorate who actually voted Tory.
Right.
But there was 25% of those on the electoral roll didn't bother to vote.
Right.
And when we talked to a lot of those people on the street, and they said, well, there's no point, is there? There's absolutely no point. It's just a wasted vote. I couldn't be bothered. It's better just, just leave it.
Right.
So if we can tap into any of those people, which we are beginning to do, and say, just once, how about you give it a go?
Yeah.
What we've got is a situation where the Tory is likely to win on a minority of the vote. They're predicted to win he's predicted to win about 32, 33%.
Right.
Because the opposition is split. So, and people aren't clear. It's not clear from any of the polling whether it should be the Lib Dem or Labour. The Greens probably realistically, they sort of probably know whether they're the third party. But we said in order to get real buy-in, instead of trying to second guess who's going to be the tactical vote on the day, let's all of us decide who we think is best placed to do it. So at the town halls that we've got booked for next year, people will come along and interview the 3 candidates, and we say to people, you're interviewing them for the job of representing you.
Yeah.
And we're going to document their promises.
Yeah.
And if they want to win your vote, they're going to have to appeal to a pretty broad church.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to commit to some things. Like, I'm sure one of the deal breaker things will be, are you committed to supporting PR? Are you committed to supporting the climate and ecology bill? Those are going to be pretty key things that people will want to know about. And then when all the town halls are over, we add up all the votes, and it's a preferential. It's a sort of rank everybody 1, 2, 3. We can't do proportional representation, obviously, because we're doing a whole person.
Right.
We can't
Yeah.
piece them together Frankenstein style.
Yeah.
So it'll be a sort of sudden death runoff, from the rankings. And then we all say, right, that no matter what your personal preference was, that might be your second choice, but it's our first choice now, and we're all going to get behind them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And the big thing is that because we're going out, we've leafleted almost the entire constituency now with volunteers. That's 38,000 houses that have been hand delivered with a leaflet.
Wow. Yeah.
And we've been out on the streets with these boards, taking opinions. And today, for example, we had 2 teams out, one in Totnes, one in South Brent. And the reaction's just all the same. It's people, once you show them how this is going to work, they go, oh, I'm in. Yeah, count me in. I'm
Really?
definitely doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can see I've got my branded
Yeah.
hoodie on.
Cool. Yeah.
When you wear that around the streets, people come up and say, oh, I'm doing that.
Yeah. Oh, wicked.
It's great, so it's really beginning to gather momentum.
Does it give
And
you a
people-
buzz, like to know
There's
that
a
you're,
buzz.
yeah, like
Yeah.
you're going to affect change aspirationally,
Yeah.
but like it feels like there's some momentum to it, right? Like,
Yeah. And okay, for some people, it's as simple as I want to give the Tories a kicking.
yeah,
That's fine. For some people, it's I actually have a moral, ethical, philosophical reason for wanting to do this. That's fine. That's fine. But the big thing is that people turn around, they say, oh, so what you're saying is that my vote might actually count this time. And I'm going, yep, that's exactly what we're saying.
yeah.
And they go, right, I'm in.
I saw a clip on your website earlier where somebody was, I think it was a Conservative MP or like a local candidate or something, and he was saying, oh, well, this sounds like socialism on steroids because
That was that's the
he was like, it's like you're denying people their choice. And I think Oliver Dowden said something very similar at the last, like maybe the local election, something to do with the idea that tactical voting was playing more of a role. And he said something about, oh no, I remember now. It was a rumoured pact between Lib Dem and Labour, and they wrote to Labour to say, can you comment on this pact, this deal, because it sounds like, and this was their words, it sounds like you're looking to deny voters a good choice. And I was like, no, what they did, like they're being smart. Like this is no different to when the Tories did a pact with the Brexit Party, and he must have known that. Like this is why I get so fiery and like wound up, because it's like as he was then, as chair of the Conservative Party, there is absolutely no way he didn't know about the the 2019 pact with the Brexit Party. So to then go on record with a written note to Labour and say, you want to tell us about this pact that we don't approve of? It's like, will you fuck off?
Yeah, I know. And we're saying to people, oh, how weird. We're encouraging people who don't bother to vote usually to vote. And that's undemocratic. Wow.
Yeah, it
And
sounds
they
like
get
you're a
to
right
choose who
enemy
they
of
want to vote
democracy.
for.
Yeah.
They get to choose who they want to vote for, and we don't ask any candidates to stand down.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah. No, he hasn't got a leg to stand on.
Okay, so it sounds like things are going well in South Devon. And then, so let's assume that there is a general election in spring of 2024. What's the plan?
Right. So the plan is, first of all, we're rolling them out to some other constituencies as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got, what we decided to do is to make it all open source. So if you meet the criteria, we're not interfering in places where there's a clear front runner from a progressive, because you don't want to mess it up. It's where it's ambiguous.
Right.
It's where the Tory's going to win if you don't do something.
Okay.
Because the vote will be split.
Because
nobody knows who the tactical vote is. So we've got 4 confirmed now, and others in the wings. So there's Danny Kruger's seat, Michelle Donnellan,
Okay.
Jeremy Hunt. Hang on, I've gone a blank now on the 3rd. Kemi Badnox is in the wings.
All right.
We're trying to get
okay.
somebody. Yeah, it'd be good, wouldn't it? Trying to get Suella Braverman's Fareham seat off the ground too. We've got some interest there.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things that we want to do is to get as many people get going before Christmas as possible.
Right.
Because after Christmas, I think we've got to go on the basis that they could go in May.
Yeah. Yeah. Get prepped. And then I suppose if they do push it back to later in the year or early 2025, I think is the latest they can do it.
January 25. I mean, that would be.
I'll fucking kill myself, Anthea, if it's that long.
Oh, please don't know. You've got to hang on till then. I know there's a bit of me that says, just go have a snap election right now. Let's get rid of you and get on with it.
But this sort of goes back to, what I was saying earlier about the machinations of CCHQ, donors, what they're actually there to do is the idea that they're going to just hang on in there for as long as they possibly can sort of speaks to that whole theory, because it's like they don't really care. They're not there to serve us. They're not they haven't governed for I mean, I'm sure David Cameron had some ideas, and I'm sure Theresa May wanted to do some things, but they haven't governed in the interest of the people for a long fucking time.
No, so it's just been one big trolley dash, and they want to have the keep the supermarket open as long as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, they've got their finger on the button at the moment. They can still sign off government contracts. So as long as donors keep coming knocking on their doors saying, if I give you £25,000, can I have a £300 million contract? They're going to keep doing it. So that then when they're in opposition, they've got some money banked, That's the theory.
Well, I'm quite worried. They've just put up the spending limits that are allowed, but massively. And then you hear that Lord Sainsbury, one of the Sainsburys that left them 10 million quid last month. So, they're gonna spend that money on social media ads, targeted social media ads, like there's no tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And here we are on the ground campaigning on absolute shoestring, just with people power and volunteer time and everything.
Yeah.
Up against this, absolute Goliath of corruption and wealth. It's quite a thing.
Can I ask, and I wouldn't expect you to name names, but has your former life in asset management served as fertile ground for fundraising for this stuff? Because a friend of mine who works in activism always says, it's like people expect you to save the world for free. There's never any funding coming into left-leaning causes, even though everyone agrees that things are getting more authoritarian, that the NHS is in tatters, that blah, blah, blah. And we always all complain that there's no money coming in. I just wondered, doesn't sound like there is that sort of money coming in. Is that because they all vote Tory?
Not
or
asking.
Is it?
No, not to be honest, not asking. Not
Really?
asking for it. We are I'm sure Simon won't mind me saying that he funds it. It's peanuts, really.
Right.
I mean, it will be a lot to somebody on universal credit, but it's de minimis, really. The only thing we're going to crowdfund is the mass mailing to tell everybody where the town halls are. So
Right.
in whenever we decide to, we've got them booked, but whenever we decide to tell everybody, here are the dates and make sure you come, we're going to get Royal Mail to do that, because February is not a good time to be asking volunteers to be out delivering stuff in remote areas, So it costs about £3,000. We're going to have to raise the money with a crowdfunder, and I'm sure we'll get the money like that. We'd rather it came from lots and lots of little donors who buy into the whole thing. But no, we wanted it to be very sort of transparent and not to have any conflicts of interest or any, just keep it really pure.
That's nice. I mean, I suppose by keeping it in that sort of model, you completely neuter any accusations that you are then in hock to donors and unions or whatever. But
and the other really important thing is none of us belongs to a political party.
Okay.
All of us at one time or other have voted for the three progressive parties, but tactically.
Mm.
But we're not a member of any party. And again, when you're talking to people on the street, when you say, "Look, I'm not from any political party," they kind of big side. Really, oh, okay, you're
Yeah.
not trying to get me to vote for you. That's great. That helps enormously.
Interesting. And so the other thing I was wondering about was like, so obviously, I mean, to me, this sounds like a really good solution, and it would be really interesting to see this scale up at the GE, because a lot of the conversations I've had with the movement forward, and Josh there specifically, have been around, where there's a clear winner, then it's this person, and where it's this other party that look like they have the best chance, then it's that party, so everyone should get in behind that party. We don't spend an awful lot of time talking about kind of marginals where the second and third party are kind of neck and neck. I wondered if you've had any pushback from either of the parties.
No, I think the thing is, these are seats that they probably didn't ever expect to win. So there's that.
Okay.
So suddenly it's a massive resource. You've got an independent organisation mobilising voters like there's no tomorrow, bringing people who are normally not that interested in politics, getting them out into the town halls to ask questions about manifestos. It's a fantastic opportunity to showcase what you're about. Yeah. So people are thinking, actually, this is brilliant. I don't have to do anything. I just rock up.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that if you're then not the winner, you can go in, the party can say, right, okay, we're going to concentrate therefore on that seat where we've got a bit more of a chance. And the volunteers can go over there, and you recreate a little bit of that by-election buzz, where people go where they're most needed.
Yeah.
And I think people really do get that this is kind of shit or bust, this election.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
Like, it feels like we're on the edge of losing our democracy completely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like we're quite where America is right now. Like with the US, I truly feel like if Trump gets in, you're going to see some sort of... Like, it might not be called the Enabling Act. Might not be that radical, but it won't be far off. It'll be in the neighborhood. There'll be some sort of reining in of press freedoms. There will be similar legislation, I suppose, to what we've seen over here about, like, strikes and protests.
But, we are ticking a lot of the fascism tick boxes, aren't we?
Yeah.
Social suppression, demonstrations.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, curbing protest. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff in there that's not good.
Yeah.
And when you've got a prime minister who stands up and says, do you know what? I think I'll make a law. I'll have a law that says a place is safe when it's not safe.
Yeah, because I said so.
Yeah. It's like, where does that end?
Yeah. Like, I was doing a TikTok about it yesterday going, like, I don't know if he fully understands. I'm certain Suella Braverman doesn't fully understand, but I don't know if Sunak understands that just because you say something is the case within your own domestic area doesn't mean that you are then exempt from international law. That doesn't and he's a smart guy. I feel like he's more cynical than dumb, whereas with Braverman, I feel like it's the opposite way around.
Yeah, but do you know what I think Sunak would like? I think he'd like to swan off now to California, cozy up to Musk, do a Clegg.
Good.
And then maybe eye up being Prime Minister of India or something. I mean, why not?
Could be. Like, I keep trolling him on Twitter saying, like, just take your winnings and fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, just, you won. You won. You were privately educated. You had a great university experience. You did this. You went in the city. You became Prime Minister, the first British Asian Prime Minister. And you've made a shit ton of money. And potentially you're about to make a shit ton more when your wife's shares benefit from the India trade deal that you're so desperate to get, which is the rumor to why he's got David Cameron in, right? Is to sort of smooth that over. But just why are you even hanging in here? And the only thing I could think of was that so much of his life and his family and his friends and his circles are embedded in conservatism and, the party's sort of extensions and offshoots. That if he did just press the nuclear button now and he was like, right, GE, he would never be forgiven. He would be ostracized, banned from this country club. And that's But I think if it was actually up to him, if he didn't have to pay the price for it socially, I think he probably would have just fucked off by now.
Yeah, do you know, I got the impression at the podium the other day when he bashed his papers, it was almost like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I heard a bunch of
I want to go to California.
a bunch of adjectives used to describe it, like petulant, tetchy.
Tetchy.
Yeah. And he is like, I've seen a few interviews of him now, like where they ask him a question, he gives an answer, they probe him, they prod him, and he comes off as impatient, and
he just loses it, doesn't he? Really
Yeah.
quickly. I mean, not in a big way, but he's like, how dare you?
I'll tell you what he's got.
Question me. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Challenging me.
There's a sort of there's a I'm better than you layer to it, but there's also
yeah, definitely.
I don't know if you had mates like back in the day where, like, if I was down the pub with my friends and then somebody said something a bit shitty to me, or if they ruined my game of pool, like they just like started messing around on the pool, I would be visibly upset or about it. I would just be like, oh, don't fucking do that, like. And then I would become the joke. They would be like, look how angry he is. Look how... And I would be like, I'm not even that angry. I'm just like, don't fuck up the pool table. Like, but he's got that. It's like that sort of slight diluted element of like, look, underneath I obviously am really fucked off about this, but I'm gonna keep a sort of civil, like, veneer to it. Is how I read him when he's like that.
But I do now call him Titchy Tetchy Rishi.
It's a good name. Yeah.
Dear. I mean, but look at that front bench. I mean,
they're abysmal.
Bunch of
Yeah,
useless, venal,
here's
ignorant people.
Here's a question for you. I think this could be a really interesting answer. So let's go with it. So imagine you've got a constituency coming up at GE. Everyone's like, yep, Anthea, come on, let's go do the tactical voting thing. Let's go out leafleting, blah, blah, blah. And then you have a look at what each candidate stands for. And it's like neck and neck and neck. You've got Lib Dems, Tories, Labour. But Labour, the guy, is not overly enthusiastic about climate science. The Lib Dem guy is not overly enthusiastic about climate science. And then the Tory is one of those very few that's quite sort of, environmental and rural, and it actually is taking it quite seriously. Would you adjust your campaign in that area to allow the Tory in, knowing that they would still be subservient to CCHQ and the donors and BP and so on and all the fracking stuff? Or would you stay true to your campaign's roots and be like, we've got to get rid of this motherfucker?
It's the latter.
Really? Okay, cool. Yeah. It's the right answer. You win a prize, Anthea.
There is, I'm afraid, action speak. If there was a Tory that felt like that, they are in the wrong party.
Yes. I saw somebody yesterday on Twitter about the thing. Did you see the clip of the newsreader who
Yes, he went
the thing up, right? And this Conservative MP replied to it, or quote tweeted it, and said, I'm shocked that this is still up. This is beneath us. Like, she was disgusted that CCHQ were doing these things. Bad day for CCHQ yesterday for their Twitter account. And there's loads of people underneath it trolling, going you draw the line at this, really? This is and I was there was a couple of others saying then leave, resign, because this is absolutely what your party are all about. Yeah. This isn't even the worst thing. It's not even close. There's so much more that's wait. And you're right. They should just cross the floor, or they should actually have some integrity to them.
Yeah, I tweeted similarly something yesterday. I said, if are there really no decent Tories left who don't, do not say, oh, well, I'm standing down next time. It doesn't absolve you. You should either follow your conscience, do the right thing, or cross the floor. It's not good enough. It's not good enough to just roll over.
Yeah. I mean, we had a sort of a sniff of what that change could or should have been when you had Anna Soubry, who were the
Dominic
other
Grieve,
ones?
David Gore.
Yeah.
Really good people. Rory Stewart.
Yeah.
Cracking, mind you, the Overton windows move so far to the right that there are lots of people that we think are centrists who aren't really, are
Yeah,
they?
yeah, yeah.
They are right wing, but decent people with values and some core morality, and you think that Johnson just trashed the lot of them.
Yeah. But it's like, so when they all stood up and they were going to start a new party, Chuka Umunna was in there as well.
Yes, there's
And there was a Labour,
Sarah Wollaston,
Sarah Wollaston. There was about 12 of them, wasn't there?
yeah,
And I
Sam
thought, oh,
Gyimah?
this is the moment, right? Like
Yeah,
they could either they're going to form their own party / kind of lobby group. Really, is what it is. It's sort of what Reform are now, but it was for centre left, centre right. But it just sort of fizzled out, didn't it?
well, first past the post won't let anything like that live anyway. And really, what we need electoral reform. Those big tents have got to split. You can't keep fascists and One Nation Tories in one tent.
No.
Without having, squabble and pretend that behind that, inside that tent, it's all sweetness and light, because it's patently bollocks. So the sooner they split, and the fascists can be fascist, and the centres can be centre, and everybody can see what they are. And the same with Labour, the super left can have its own thing. And then you have proper transparency. People can really vote for who they really, really, really want, and it will make life a lot, lot better.
This is the wild thing, isn't it? About when we talk about crossing the floor, or so just resign. Like, I wouldn't even think it was that much of a leap anymore for people to make the leap from. Like, if you're a centre-right, sort of half pragmatic, half intelligent Tory, to make the leap from that to Keir Starmer's Labour Party doesn't feel like the sort of leap that's going to leave you with a stretch injury right now. So it's all the more insulting or disappointing that so few / none of them have been able or felt able to make that move.
Yeah, but I think first past the post, coupled with tribalism. I mean, the thing that makes me tear my hair out is people who say, "Well, I'll never ever vote Lib Dem," or "I'll never ever vote Labour." And you say, "What? So you'd rather let a Tory in?"
Yeah,
and they go a bit sort of quiet. But they actually would. But they actually would let them in.
Yeah. But then I always think it's an interesting exercise too. So one of the reasons I asked you earlier about, if the Tory was more pro-environmental is because it is interesting to sort of test that tribalism. And I've asked Tan, Super Tansky, for anyone that's watching that isn't already following her, which,
Dystopia warning.
If you're not following Tan, I mean, what the fuck are you even doing?
You're missing out, big style.
But I've asked her before, and I've sort of, it's in a playful way. I've been like, what if the local Tory to you adopted a load of progressive policies in their manifesto? Would you lend them your vote versus the sort of watery Labour candidate in it? Like, would you make that leap yourself? Because there is a tribal element to it. And I don't want to say never. I mean, at the moment, it feels like I would never vote Tory. I would be drenched in shame. I'd set fire to myself. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't... basically, I don't want to be in a position where I can't criticise others for being tribal towards Tories when I myself am saying, like, I could never vote Tories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the thing is, if you sign up to be a member of this current manifestation of the Tory party, I mean, I'm sorry, you are virtually UKIP. You are UKIP.
Oh, yes.
You're
Blue Kip. Yeah.
You're Blue Kip, definitely. I mean, unless you're you see, the only reason you might do that and then say whatever is that you might be like Boris Johnson, who'll say whatever it takes. I mean, have you read the Rory Stewart book? I mean, it's clear that, that there are people in politics who will say whatever it takes. You want to hear this? I'll tell you this. You over here? Oh, you want something different? Okay, you can have the different thing.
Yeah,
it conflicts with that thing I said to that person, but do you know what? You don't talk to each other, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what I said to you anyway, because it was 5 minutes ago, and I didn't WhatsApp it, or I zapped my WhatsApp, so I don't remember it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and there's so much testimony out there as to how crooked the candidates are, how soulless and vapid they are. But there's also a lot of critiques out there about how just set up for failure the entire estate of Westminster is.
Yeah.
About, and I suppose I'm alluding to Ian Dunt's book there, like, what's it
Yeah,
called?
yeah. Why it doesn't work.
Yeah, how Westminster works and why it doesn't, right?
And why it doesn't, yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But you know, one of the things about the primary too is when you send a candidate up there that the people en masse have chosen, it's a bit like the Teals in Australia. They're on a kind of mandate from the people. And, you know, we'd like to think that if there are 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or a dozen of them sitting there, they might feel that they're in a kind of block. You know, these are all people's champions who were sent by the primary process, and they might feel empowered. They should feel empowered to say, I'm sorry, I can't go for that. I promised those people. And we're going to document all those promises, and we're going to monitor them, and we're going to hold them to account.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep reminding them. We'll have all these bite-sized chunks of video. You said.
Yeah.
You did.
This is like, it's what winds me up about it. Is like,
you said, you voted.
Like, I don't
mind. This way.
I don't mind if they say, look, as the Labour Party or as the Liberal Democrat Party, we have to get a certain amount of money in every year to fund the party. That's the system that we have. Now, in order to make that happen, we have to do some deals with donors. And yes, sometimes they expect little favours in return. So that is just how politics is in the UK. And I'm sorry that I said that we would pay for 3 new bridges in Lower Quaffington, Smythe, or wherever the village is. But unfortunately, unfortunately, I spoke to the thing, and that did conflict with the donors, blah, blah, blah. Like, if they were just honest about it, but it's just the thing that winds me up about it is like, it's never honest. It's always contorted, misrepresented, spoon-fed back to us as though we're fucking idiots.
Yeah. I mean, what we're arguing for really, isn't it, is state funding of parties so that we don't have donor-funded parties.
Yes. I mean, I would support that.
Yeah. That would make a massive difference, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But it's like, then how do you, I guess you would need to apportion, you know, like a chunk of tax money for the opposition and then double it for the government.
Yeah, there has to be some formula. I'm sure somebody could work it out, what the pro rata amount should be for campaigning and everything, that you couldn't, you know, if you run a party and run a campaign, you couldn't actually, you can't spend 32 freaking million on it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, this is it. Like, I really don't want to get in a situation where the UK is like the US and it's just like, yeah, here's $100 million. And you just like, like skywriting stuff up there, and every other advert is like, oh, I'm John Buck blah blah, and I approve this message. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. Let's not go down that road, guys.
No. Proportional representation. Make the Houses of Parliament into a museum and move and build a hemisphere in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Glassy, bright and airy. Get different people in. Get proportional representation of much more interesting candidates.
Yes.
Get some compromise going and some long-term planning. Ka-ching, there, done, sorted.
I agree. Listen, Anthea, we've got about 5 minutes. I'm just going to quickly ask anyone on the live stream. We've got a bunch of people on there tonight. We've got Tracy, we've got Pedalis, we've got Mojo Sabien, we've got Peter Del Monte, we've got Simon M, we've got somebody called the Lefty Boater, who I've not seen in before, but hello, Lefty Boater. If any of you have questions for myself or Anthea, please do shoot them in the chat very, very quickly. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask Anthea some quick fire cliche podcast questions. Are you ready?
Okay.
Yeah. If you opened up Spotify or iTunes on your phone right now, what song is playing?
Slow Dive. Slow Dive.
Slow Dive? Who's that? What's that?
Slow Dive is nice. It's Shoegazer band. They're lovely. They're great. Google them. They're fantastic.
I will.
Immersive sound. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, are they as good as this episode's sponsor, which is Matthew Sabien, whose album Eclipse is out now on SoundCloud?
I don't know. I'll have to go and have a listen to it, won't I?
You will.
Yeah.
Okay. If there was a movie about you, who would play you?
Who would play me? Oh, I'd like to think Kristen Scott Thomas.
Oh, okay. And then, separate to that, who have you been told that you look like?
My mum.
I mean, it wasn't the route that I was planning on going, but
I think sometimes.
Yeah.
I have been told, this is a bit obscure, but I have been told when I've got a hat on, a riding hat on, I look a bit like Lucinda Green.
Oh, wow. Okay. Lovely.
If
Yeah.
I rode like her, I'd be super happy.
Yeah. Okay. What's the last thing that you did that you really wish you hadn't?
That was a good question. What was the last thing I did that I wish I hadn't?
We can come back to it if you like. I've got an easy
Yeah,
question.
let me think about that.
Okay.
I'll have to think about that.
Who, in your opinion, has got a very, very punchable face?
How long have we got?
I mean, you can give me two or three
I
if you
think
like.
Generic at the moment would be.
Yeah. Normally people say
And you
Piers
couldn't
Morgan,
miss it
but
too, 'cause
Generic's
it's like big and round.
Yes, it is. Oh, it's so squishy. Yeah.
As Super Chan said, it's a baby in a Debenham suit.
Yes, perfect. You see, this is what I mean. If you're not following Super Tansky, you need to get involved. Yeah, normally people say Piers Morgan in some of the older or like vintage episodes of the podcast.
Probably would have punched Peter Hitchens after yesterday.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Hitchens.
Oh, yeah.
Weirdly, I think Chris Tarrant.
I'm not bothered about it. I'm not wasting my knuckles on him.
Yeah, he's he's not a he's not a political figure. He's not done anything to me personally. I just think squishy face wise. I mean, he ranks up there.
You punch Johnson, but your fist would probably go into all the pulpy mushiness, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, so Piers Morgan, I think I've said this before. If I haven't, then I apologise to anyone that I'm about to shock. But I honestly think if I punched Piers Morgan, I would come from both balls. Anthea. Right, so we got a question from Peter Del Monte. Thoughts on Bill Gates saying 3 degrees isn't that bad after all?
Well,
has he actually said that?
I guess. No, I don't. Well, did he really?
Bill Gates, 3 degrees.
It's bad.
Bill Gates sees a lot of climate exaggeration out there. The climate is not the end of the planet, so the planet is going to be fine. I don't think anyone's suggesting that the planet's not going to survive, Bill.
It's just the form the planet then takes. Yes.
Yeah. God, these fucking billionaires.
Do you know what? You have to check everything, don't you? Because did he say that?
Well, this is it.
Did he say that in a different context? Was it a throwaway? Was it a genuine thing? You know,
yeah.
You've got to question everything.
Is it like, do I go and look up his Twitter account and it's like, we're all going to be fine at 3 degrees increase and this is absolutely in context aid. Like that's what it's going to say. No, it's on CNBC as well. Bill Gates warns the world is likely to smash through a critical warming threshold. I mean, that's a slightly different quote than the one presented. But yeah, I mean, just for context, you will know this, but for the benefit of viewers and listeners, if we go even like a degree up, there is a noticeable effect on sea levels, on crop generation. I mean, I always go back to this, but like the hysteria over tens of thousands of people arriving in boats is going to feel like nothing when we're talking about huge dried out countries that can't grow their own crops or are flooded and now are underwater, or we're going to have, I mean, we might be okay in the UK. It might just be a slightly nicer, warmer climate, but we're not going to be unaffected because people are going to rock up en masse.
Well, the other thing is, I would say to people, you know, if your house flooded every year, would you move?
Yes.
And they go, oh, yeah, well, of course I'd move.
Yeah.
And I go, well, there you go.
Yeah. Let's see if there's any other questions. Simon M says, 1 free punch, got to be Farage. That should be his challenge.
Punch the frog.
That should be his challenge for, not kiss the frog, just punch the frog. Should be his challenge in the jungle. It's just like every challenge. It's like, I wouldn't even mind if they put him in the jungle. All this talking about like platforming a fascist, I'd actually be okay with it if every single one of his challenges was just like, I'd be like, this is all right. I like this show. Okay.
No, I don't think you should be dignified with a punch, really.
No. Mojo Sabian says, out of 650 members of parliament, how many good eggs do you reckon there are in there, Anthea?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. 40 or so, probably, actually. But I think, you know, I mean, obviously standouts are Caroline Lucas. Such a shame she's going. Chris Bryant, I think he's a really good guy. I like him a lot. I like Darren Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's pretty cool. Layla Moran, I think, has been fantastic through this whole Gaza thing too, you know, with that extra dimension she's had to deal with. Yeah, my brain's gone kind of empty at the moment, but I mean, there was a time when I would have been able to name Dominic Grieve and Sarah Wollaston and said I like them too, but so big loss.
Yeah, times change, unfortunately. Let's just check if there's one more, and then we'll call it a night, guys. Oh, here we go. This is from Pedulis. If any Tory would promise something actually progressive, would you really believe him? This is almost exactly the response that Tan gave me. She was like, even if they did say, we're going to take you, like, imagine this is a constituency Tory. And they say, I'm fully behind taking us back into the EU. I'm fully behind investing in the NHS. You couldn't ask for a more climate respectful and, pro-climate, rein in the oil companies candidate than me. Would you fucking believe that person, given how the setup is and how habitually they lie? And that always puts me back in my box, to be fair.
Yeah, I'd be saying, I'd like to watch you have this conversation with a Brexiter.
Or next time a member of the opposite side, like the tribe, because, we talked about different tribes of the Tory party. Next time an ERG pro-fracking type stands up in the House, would you actually oppose? Would you stand up there and render yourself vulnerable to losing your cushy office, to not getting the right amount of support for the next general election?
Exactly.
I mean, that seems
no,
to be
I'm
where
sorry,
it goes
yeah. Pulling for the wrong side.
Yeah. Anthea Simmons, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Guys, please do go and check out South Devon
Primary.
South Devon
Not
Primary.
a school.
Thank you. Yeah. South Devon
and
Primary.
And also Political Primary, politicalprimary.org, which is the nationwide one.
Great, yeah, and that's obviously going to play a big role in the upcoming general election. So yes, South Devon Primary and Political Primary. Are you on Twitter? You're on Threads and all that?
Yeah, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram.
Jolly good.
Yeah.
So people can just Google you and find you. Thank you so much for those of you, jumping in the live stream and the chat tonight. I'll be back Tuesday or Wednesday next week with a solo show. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep it #Booge. Keep it strictly #Binfluencer. And I'm out this motherfucker.